Good afternoon everyone, my name is Hubert and I will be one of the reporters for today's lecture and I will be reporting General Ledger System. In Figure 8-1, as you can see, characterizes the General Ledger System as a hub connected to another system of the firm through spokes of information flows. For example, management reporting system, financial reporting system, payroll, accounts receivable, cash, expense, and etc. Transaction cycles process individual events that are recorded in special journal and subsidiary accounts. Summaries of this transaction flows into general system sources of input from the management reporting system and financial reporting system. Management reporting system is an information that can be a report or a statement. It assists members of management by providing timely and pertinent information. Financial reporting system is a formal records that provides in-depth sights into financial information. The bulk of the flows into the general ledger system comes from the transaction subsystems. Note, however, the information flows from the financial reporting system as feedback into general ledger system. We shall explore this point more thoroughly later. In this section, we will review key elements of general ledger system. As you can see, financial reporting system give information to provide general ledger system and vice versa.
Good day everyone, I will discuss for this video the financial reporting system. The management has a responsibility to give stewardship information to external parties. That's why the management's reporting obligation is met by the FRS, or the Financial Reporting System. The information from this is in the form of standard financial statements, tax returns, and documents required by regulatory agencies like SEC. Yung mga nakalista rito, ilan lamang sa mga information na naibibigay ng financial reporting system. So, who are the users of financial statement information? One of them are the primary users, or the external users, or the primary recipients. They are the stockholders, creditors, and government agencies. They are interested in the performance of the organization as a whole. Kasi yung performance as a whole ng organization allows them to, for instance, sa mga stockholders, they can check if the business has a promising percentage of return on investment, or sa perspective ng creditors, if makakabayad ba yung company if sakaling pautangin nila. Therefore, the financial reporting information must be prepared and presented by all organizations in a manner that is generally accepted and understood by external users. For the next slide, we'll tackle about sophisticated users with homogeneous information needs. Since the external users needed information may vary, financial statements are targeted at the general audience. And also, financial statements are prepared on the proposition that the audience comprises sophisticated users with relatively homogeneous information needs. When you say sophisticated users, sila yung mga tao na may sapat na kaalaman na para maintindihan yung kung ano ba yung laman ng financial statements. They are expected to understand the accounting principles and know the financial statements content that will be useful to them. So for this slide, we are going to discuss the financial reporting procedures. Figure 8.4 shows the financial reporting process. Financial reporting is the final step in the overall accounting process that begins in the transaction cycles. It starts with a new fiscal year, and the balance sheet accounts become the beginning balance of some accounts since it will be carried to the following year as it contains permanent accounts. Next slide. So, here are the following steps in the financial reporting procedures. Let's start with transaction processing system part. First is the capture the transactions. In this step, we are collecting transactions, then put them into appropriate transaction file. Second step, we're going to record it in special journal. Dito, we have two journals, special journal, and the general journal. For the second step, dito natin isosort out if the transaction will be in the special journal or general journal. If the transaction frequently occurs, like sales, sa special journal ito ilalagay. Pero pag hindi naman, sa general journal or directly on a journal voucher ilalagay. Third is posting it to subsidiary ledger. Here, the details of each transactions are posted to the affected subsidiary accounts. Then, yung total nito nag-i-equal sa isang specific account sa general ledger. Bale, dito na makikita yung mas detailed information of accounts. Fourth step is post to the general ledger. Dito naman, pinaka-summarize na record na since the entries made to the special journals and subsidiary ledgers are prepared and posted to the general ledger accounts. For the next step, we will prepare the unadjusted trial balance. Yung mga ending balances of the accounts in general ledger will be placed in a worksheet, then i-check if the total debit-credit is equal. Also, para ma-make sure na complete yung transactions on the record, we will make adjusting entries. In this step, we will also check if we have unrecorded transactions during the period. For instance, we will record depreciation of equipment. Then, we will journalize and post adjusting entries. It will also be the same process na ipopose natin yung adjusting entries sa appropriate accounts in general ledger. After that, we will now prepare the adjusted trial balance. Then, ito na yung magiging basehan ng mga ilalagay natin sa financial statements. So, for the ninth step, we will now prepare the financial statements. Here, the balance sheet, income statement, and statement of cash flows are prepared using the adjusted trial balance. Next step, we will now journalize and post the closing entries. Dito, yung mga temporary accounts, i-close na since only the permanent accounts will be carried for the next period. Then, it will also be posted to the general ledger. Then, for the last step, we will now prepare the post-closing trial balance. Tapos, yung trial balance worksheet containing only the balance sheet accounts may now be prepared to indicate the balances being carried forward to the next accounting period. Next slide. Overall, this figure 8.4 often is the case for the larger organizations with multiple streams of revenue and expense transactions that need to be reconciled before being posted to the general ledger. Dito, mapapansin na yung process nila is by batch. Since, kinokollect muna nila yung transactions in batch mode, since according na sa Chapter 2, it is to achieve operational efficiency. And for the last part, if figure 8.4 is a batch process, dito naman sa figure 8.5, general ledger or financial reporting system using database technology presents a IFRS using a combination of batch and real-time computer technology. Dito kasi there is a real-time update sa general ledger and financial reporting systems kaya nakapag-generate agad ng financial statements on a short notice. Tapos, mas pinadali pa dahil nga meron ng computer technology. So, that is all for financial reporting system topic under Chapter 8.
So hello everyone, I'm Timothy Ramos and I will be discussing about re-engineering financial report. So basically I will tell you why companies use this, so how it affects the company and what's their main objective. So it tells us that this is an innovation and a solution to improve financial situation and also financial performance of the company. Online reports have become essential for the company to maximize its efficiency by placing their financial statements on their websites as HTML or what's called hypertext markup language. These documents can be downloaded by users such as Security Exchange of Commission, financial analysis, and other interested parties. However, it cannot be processed through an IT automation. It requires or it should be manually entered into the user's information system. With that, XBRL or Extensible Business Reporting Language is made to solve the problem. It is designed for business reporting and information exchange. The main objective of XBRL or Extensible Business Reporting Language is to facilitate the publication, exchange, and processing of financial and business information. XBRL is also a derivative of another internet standard called XML or Extensible Markup Language. XBRL is a XML-based language that was designed to provide the financial community with a standard method for preparing, publishing, and automatically exchanging financial information, including the financial statements of publicly held companies. Having said that, XML or Extensive Markup Language is a meta-language for describing markup language, which basically it means that XML is a language used to describe another language. The term extensible means that any markup language can be created using XML. And other languages are capable of storing data also to model the structure of organizations' database. Now, as you can see, the example illustrated, we can distinguish that HTML and XML have both the same differences and similarities exist between them. Their similarities are they have both the same structure and they have both brackets and symbols, but their differences are they have different function. So in the HTML example, the tags have predefined, meaning that they describe how the attributes will be presented in a document. The book order in this example can only be viewed visually and be manually entered into the bookstore's order entry system for processing. In the case of XML order, the tags are customized to the user, and the user's application can read and interpret the tag data. The bookstore ordered paper in XML presents order attributes in a relational form that can be automatically imported into the bookseller's internal database. So lastly, this image represents the XBRL reporting process, which is just an overview and will be discussed further by the next reporter. So the process starts first at XBRL taxonomy and proceed to taxonomy mapper and to reporting organization financial database with embedded tax, to XBRL instance document, to reporting organization website, and to download the financial report to user system, and lastly to analyze the financial information.
Hi. The next step is to cross-reference each account in the reporting organization's general ledger to appropriate XBRL taxonomy element. So in this figure 828 presents part of hypothetical company's internal database. This snapshot shows the values of general ledger accounts and their values. To make the data useful to outsiders and comparable with other firms, ang mga data na ito ay kailangan organized and labeled base sa internal needs and conventions ng reporting company. Kailangan maayos na nakalabel in a manner na lahat ng XBRL users are generally accepted. This also involves mapping the organization's internal data to XBRL taxonomy elements. Next, company general ledger to taxonomy mapper. Figure 8 to 9. The mapping process is accomplished using a simple tool such as taxonomy mapper. Pinapakita dito sa illustration na kung paano yung XBRL tag are labeled cash as cash equivalents and cash term investment is mapped to the database account labeled in cash in Bank Canada. Pagkatapos ng mapping process, each database record will contain or stored as that receipt by the taxonomy element, which is in this illustration example. Data mapping needs to be done only once, but the embed tags are used whenever the data are placed in XBRL format for dissemination to outsiders. This allows the business's entities to provide expanded financial information frequently and can initiate to interested parties. At yung mga companies na gumagamit ng native XBRL database technology internally para sa kanilang primary information storage platform ay kayang mapabilis yung process ng kanilang reporting. Users of such financial data, for example, mga investors or analysis, can readily import yung mga XBRL documents into internal database and analysis tools to greatly facilitate their financial decision making. So in this illustration example, it's the XBRL instance document. For this new database structure, company programs that recognize and interpret the tags associated with the data attributes can generate called as XBRL instance document for the actual financial reports. The XBRL instance document can now be published and made available to users. The document can be placed on an internet server for internal users, or pwede siyang i-place sa private data for limited dissemination to customers or trading partners. Or it can be placed on the internet for public dissemination. In its current state, the instance document is computer readable for analysis and processing to make it more human readable. HTML layout rules can be provided in a separate style sheet the web browsers use to present the XBRL information in a visually appealing manner. The current state of XBRL reporting. The XBRL will likely be the primary vehicle for delivering business reports to investors and regulators. Take note na lahat ng members of financial reporting community, kailangan silang maging aware sa XBRL kasi importante siya sa pag-exchange ng information through technology. So the reason to progress toward the end has been substantial both in the United States and internationally. Some of these developments are US banking regulators have required quarterly poll reports to be filed in XBRL. Second, the SEC had begun a voluntary financial reporting program that allows the registrants to supplement their required filings with exhibit using XBRL. And lastly, SEC announced new electronic reporting system to receive XBRL filing. The new system is called the IDEA, or the Interactive Data Electronic Application.
Hello everyone, I'm Raf, and in continuation of our group's report for Chapter 8, I will be discussing controlling the financial reporting system. As mentioned earlier, ang purpose ng mga information from the financial statements ng isang organization is primarily for its external users. That is why kailangan yung mga terms and yung mismong content ng ating financial statements can be generally understood and accepted by the external users. Well, according to the Sarbanes-Oxley legislation, nire-require nito ang mga management ng isang organization to design and to implement internal controls for the financial reporting process. Kasama na rito yung transaction processing systems, which is ito yung nagbibigay ng data na makikita natin sa FRS. There are 4 potential risks or yung mga bagay which can cause danger sa ating FRS. Una rito is yung defective audit trail. Defective meaning there is something wrong or mayroong something na hindi gumagana ng maayos, while an audit trail is a step-by-step record that can be used para matrace yung accounting, trade details, or other financial data pabalik sa kanyang source. The second potential risk for the FRS is the unauthorized access to the general ledger. Since everyone within the company network can access the ledger at any point and maaari silang makapag-duplicate ng copy nito, a company should not provide access to the general ledger. Providing external users access to a company's general ledger opens the company up to significant competitive and financial risk. That is why the general ledger's data should be encrypted. In this way, mapiprevent nito yung mga errors, frauds, and maybe misinterpretations of financial statements. The third one is the general ledger accounts that are out of balance with subsidiary accounts. A subsidiary ledger ay isang collection of similar accounts whose total balances equal the total balance of a specific general ledger account. A control account or master account is the general ledger account that summarizes the account balances of a subsidiary account, or ledger rather. And lastly is the incorrect general ledger account balances because of unauthorized or incorrect journal vouchers. Moving on, if you still can remember the discussion of Sir A from Chapter 3, na-discuss niya ron yung about sa Committee of Sponsoring Organizations of the Tradeway Commission or yung COSO. So, I believe there is no need to discuss this part deeper since na-discuss naman siya thoroughly by Sir A. I'll just mention na lang yung 5 elements or components ng COSO framework, namely the control environment, risk assessment, information and communication, monitoring, and control activities. Next, we have the transaction authorization. Invalid transactions are avoided with proper authorization practices. Approval for various transactions is a necessary control para sa pag-ensure that all business activities follow established guidelines and objectives as well as to prevent fraud and theft. An example of a journal voucher is yung nakikita nyong image sa screens ngayon. So what is a journal ledger? Ang journal voucher ay ginagamit para i-process yung current accounting entries, allocations, and corrections na hindi pwedeng i-process through other means of entry into the financial system. The journal voucher is the document that authorizes a general ledger entry. Journal vouchers come from a variety of places including cash receipts processing, sales order processing, and the financial reporting group. It is critical for the accounting records integrity that the journal vouchers be properly authorized by a responsible manager at the source department. The segregation of duties or SOD is a fundamental component ng isang company's risk management and internal controls. SOD is based on the principle of shared responsibilities for a key process which distributes the critical functions of that process to more than one person or department. The task of updating the general ledger ay kailangang hiwalay from the organization's accounting and asset custody responsibilities. As a result, individuals with access to general ledger accounts should not first have record-keeping responsibility for special journals or subsidiary ledgers. Second, prepare journal vouchers. And lastly, they should not have custody of physical assets. Access control is a security technique that governs kung sino or ano ang may access and uses resources in a computing environment. Ang access control ay isang fundamental security concept that reduces risk to the business or organization. Unauthorized access to general ledger accounts can lead to financial statement errors, fraud, and misinterpretations. SOX legislation addresses this area of risk explicitly by requiring organizations to implement controls that restrict database access to only authorized individuals. So why is access control important? Bakit nga ba ito mahalaga? Ang purpose ng access control is para ma-reduce yung security risk associated with unauthorized access to physical and logical systems. Access control is a critical component of security compliance programs because it ensures that security technology and access control policies are in place to protect sensitive information such as consumer data. Most businesses have infrastructure and procedures in place to restrict access to networks, computer systems, applications, files, and sensitive data such as personally identifiable information and intellectual property. Accounting records include every document that makes accounting possible, from the preparation of financial statements to their finalization, allowing them to be audited. Accounting records includes assets and liabilities, monetary transactions, ledgers, journals, and so on. Accounting records are important dahil naglalaman ito ng mga critical information and evidence used in the preparation, verification, and audit of financial statements. They provide proof for monetary and non-monetary transactions as well as indicating asset ownership for the purpose of creating liabilities. When data files are conveniently and logically organized, an audit trail facilitates error prevention and correction. The audit trail is a record of a transaction's path through the transaction's input, processing, and output phases. Furthermore, the general ledger and other files that comprise the audit trail should be detailed and rich enough to first provide the ability to respond to inquiries such as those from customers and vendors. Second, be able to reconstruct files if they are completely or partially destroyed. Third, to provide historical data required by auditors. Fourth, to fulfill government regulations. And lastly, to provide a means of preventing, detecting, and correcting errors. Independent verification and validation assists in identifying discrepancies in product quality and specifications, allowing product developers to build products that meet all user requirements. Independent verification and validation ensures that developers follow regulations and budgets. The FRS generates two operational reports, namely the Journal Voucher Listing and the General Ledger Change Report, which demonstrate the process's accuracy. The Journal Voucher Listing contains information about each journal voucher that has been posted to the General Ledger, while the General Ledger Change Report displays the consequences of journal voucher postings to General Ledger accounts. As you can see on your screens, yan ay example ng isang journal voucher listing. As mentioned na rin kanina, a journal voucher is a piece of paper na naglalaman ng mga essential information about an accounting transaction. This voucher includes a unique identifier or yung account number, transaction date, transaction description, and transaction amount. It also includes the affected accounts, references to documentary evidence, and authorizing signatures. A journal voucher is a written document to enter a transaction and is a key document that auditors examine as part of their audit procedures. Meanwhile, the General Ledger Change Report, or minsan tinatawag din itong General Ledger Detail Report, is a tool for auditing that prints the beginning balance, net postings, ending balance, postings by date, and reference numbers for each account for the period, as you can see on the image flash on your screens now. You can also print the date and user login associated with journal updates, as well as any comments entered for each journal. Account balances cannot be changed without the change being recorded on this report. A summary of the report can also be printed. XBRL is previously mentioned by other reporters. Adoption of XBRL has a positive impact on the audit process, such as supporting internal control testing with a risk-based approach, speeding up audits, lowering audit fieldwork costs, and increasing revenue opportunities for new clients. However, as a system, ang XBRL ay hindi para sa lahat. According to one study, XBRL is only a tool that does not solve all problems. XBRL does not take the place of a fundamental responsibility such as a man who operates XBRL and does not produce all the information required by the stakeholders. Management is still in charge of organizing financial reports. Other users of XBRL must understand the risk and control for potential errors and data changes in the master file by unauthorized parties. That is why there are three specific areas of concern, namely taxonomy creation, taxonomy mapping error, and lastly, the validation of instance documents. Website taxonomy is a method of organizing the information on your website so that it's searchable in a number of ways, meaning mas madali itong ma-access ng kahit sino. Taxonomy generation can be done manually, automated, or a combination of the two. Within the defined scope, it entails analyzing context, content, and users. The analysis results are used to create the taxonomy design, which includes both the taxonomy structure and the taxonomy view. The reason kung bakit isa ito sa concern ay ang paggawa ng isang taxonomy dahil maaaring ito ay ma-generate incorrectly, resulting in an incorrect mapping between data and taxonomy elements. Potentially, maglilid ito sa misinterpretation ng material na gagamitin sa ating financial data. To ensure the correct generation of XBRL taxonomies, controls must be designed and implemented. Moving on sa taxonomy mapping error. As mentioned earlier, in relation with taxonomy creation, this may lead to an incorrect mapping between the datas and taxonomy elements na maaaring mag-result sa misinterpretation ng ating financial data. Application Programming Interface or APIs can communicate across categorical boundaries thanks to taxonomy mapping. This means we can map out words or categories that don't exactly match each other and ensure they correspond correctly. Control must be exercised over the process of mapping internal database accounts to taxonomy tags. Correctly generated XBRL tags may be incorrectly assigned to internal database accounts, resulting in material financial data misinterpretation. And now, we are on the last area of concern, which is the validation of instance documents. After you create an instance document, receive a file containing an instance document, or import instance data from another application, you can validate these documents to ensure that there are no errors. The data in the instance document is validated to ensure that it foots and crosses the calculation links expressed in a taxonomy. For example, if total property and equipment within a context must equal land plus building plus fixtures, then the instance document is tested to ensure that these values are correct. Tulad ng nabanggit kanina, once na matapos ang mapping and the tags are saved in the internal database, XBRL instance documents can be generated. Before posting the instance documents to a web server, independent verification procedures must be established to ensure that there is an appropriate taxonomy and tags have been applied.
Management reporting system. It is needed for decision making inside an organization. It produces both financial and non-financial information needed by the management to plan, evaluate, and control their business. That's why it is typically a basis for management decisions. It is usually seen as a discretionary reporting, meaning it is optional or flexible depending on what is needed for and depending on the organization itself. A little trivia is in the US, because of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, it is required that entities have an MRS because management reporting system provides formal means for monitoring internal control. However, there is no law in the Philippines that requires MRS. Factors that influence the MRS design. Understanding of the information that managers need to deal with the problems they face is needed to design an effective MRS. There are several factors that influence the MRS design. These are management principles, management function, level and decision type, problem structure, type of management reports, responsibility accounting, and behavioral considerations, which will be discussed on the rest of our reporting. Management principles. The first factor is the management principles. It provides insight in the management information needs. It directly affects the MRS. There are various management principles, namely formalization of task, responsibility and authority, span of control, and management by exception. Formalization of task. The first principle is the formalization of task, which suggests that management should structure the firm around the task performed rather than around individuals' unique skills. An example of this is the HR department, accounting department, sales department, and etc. It avoids an organizational structure in which the organization's performance, stability, and continued existence depend on specific individuals. Sooner or later, key individuals leave then take their key skills with them. By formalizing tasks, the firm can more easily recruit individuals to fill standard positions left open by those who leave. It allows a specification of the information needed to support the task. The information system must focus on the task, not the individual performing the task. Otherwise, information requirements would need to be reassessed with the appointment of each new individual to the position. Responsibility and authority. Let's have a quick definition of term first. Responsibility is the obligation to achieve the desired results. Authority is the power to make decisions within the limits of that responsibility. This is delegated by managers to subordinates. It defines the vertical reporting channels through which information flows. The manager's location in the channel influences the score and the detail of the information reported. Managers at a high level requires more summarized information, while managers at low level receive information that is more detailed. The span of control. This pertains to the number of subordinates directly under the manager's control. Detailed reports are needed for managers with narrow span of control, while summarized information are needed for managers with broad span of control. As we can see in Figure 8.15, the size of the span has an impact on the organization's physical structure. Organizational behavior research suggests that wider span of controls are preferable because they allow more employee autonomy in decision making. This usually translates into better employee morale and increased motivation. The last factor is management by exception. Managers should limit their attention to potential problem areas rather than being involved in every detail or activity. This will give a chance for managers to maintain control without being overwhelmed by the details. The report should focus on changes and key factors that are symptomatic of potential problems. Unnecessary details that may draw attention away from important facts should be excluded from reports.
Good day everyone, my name is Jeremy Lastimosa, and now in this part of our presentation, we will now focus on other factors that also influence management reporting system, which is the management function, level, and decision type. As we all know, mayroong profound effect ang management function, such as yung planning and control, sa tinatawag nating management reporting system. So when we say planning function, ito yung mga decisions concerning yung mga future decisions of the organization. Dito yung nagde-develop ng strategy para ma-achieve yung goals ng organization in a systematic manner. While when we say control function, this is the management function that ensures na yung lahat ng activities na ginagawa is according to the plan. So ito yung process ng pagme-measure ng performance in operations and taking corrective measures when operations do not conform with what is expected. Ang planning and control decisions are classified into 4 categories. So dito na papasok itong triangle natin which shows the management level and decision type. At the very top, we have the top level management. Sila yung responsible sa strategic planning decisions. Then, middle level management which is focused naman sa tactical planning management control. Also, operation control is in the hands of operation management. And lastly, we have at the very bottom of the triangle the operations. So in order for us to really grasp the idea or the concept of this triangle, isa-isahin natin sila. First, we have the top-level management. So, ang top-level management, sila yung nag-create ng strategic planning decisions. So, ano-ano nga ba ang nakapaloob sa strategic planning decisions? So, una, ang top-level management, sila yung nagsiset ng goals and objective of the firm. They are also focused on determining yung scope of the business, then modifying organization structure, and setting the management philosophy. So itong mga decisions na ginagawa ng top-level management, ito ay mayroong long-term time frame and they require highly summarized information. Meaning, pag pumunta na sa kanila yung mga information or data sa top-level management, dapat nakasummarize na yung mga information na yon. And they tend to be non-recurring. So, minsan lang ma-establish itong mga ganitong decisions. Kasi nga, di ba, hindi naman pwede yearly na magpapalit na objectives or goals yung isang firm or organization. Like, pabago-bago every year. Kaya strategic planning decisions are tend to be non-recurring. Also, these kinds of decision have high degree of uncertainty kasi nagre-rely lang yung mga top-level management or yung top managers sa insight and intuition. So, malawak din yung scope nito at may profound impact on the firm. Kasi nga, yung strategic planning decisions ay isang permanent decisions. So, meron siyang permanent yung effect niya ng strategic planning decision sa organization. So, also, this requires external and internal sources of information. So, para magawa ng mga decision makers itong mga ganitong decisions, kailangan ng external and internal information. Para sa halimbawa, for the environment of the business or etc. After ng top-level management at strategic planning decisions, ang next naman ay ang tactical planning decisions. So, ang tactical planning decisions are subordinate to strategic planning decisions, and these decisions are normally made by middle-level management. So, tactical planning decisions are somewhat short-term. Hindi katulad ng strategic planning decision na long-term ang time frame niya. It is also more specific, recurring, have more certain outcomes, and have a lesser impact on the firm than strategic planning decisions. Another decision that is part of the middle management is the management control decision, which is deciding more on resources which are productively as possible in all function areas. So ginagawa itong management decision na ito by comparing the performance by a subordinate doon sa pre-established standards. Meaning, meron silang isiset na standards for evaluating the performance of by the subordinate or ng mga subordinates. So if the standard is not met, the supervisor takes corrective action. Pero pag na-meet or na-exceed yung standard na naiset ng management, the manager may be rewarded. Management control decisions are usually in between of long and short term. It also has a lower impact. It is also moderately summarized and periodic, recurring, and uncertain. Okay, next on the level is the operation control decisions, which is done by the operations management. So this decision bridge the operations in the middle and the top level management. So nagiging tulay siya ng operations, which is the bottom part of the triangle, and the middle and top level management. So ang ginagawa dito sa operational control ay ini-ensure na yung firm ay nag-ooperate in accordance with pre-established criteria. So it is narrower and more focused, which are concerned with the routine tasks of operations. And it is also more structured, no? And it's more dependent on details and have a shorter time frame because it needs to provide information to the upper management immediately. The operational control decision have three basic elements. So ano-ano nga ba itong mga elements na ito? So these are the standards, performance evaluation, and corrective action. So first, we have the standards, which are the pre-established level of performance. So ito yung mga nagiging basis sa pag-i-evaluate ng performance, and it applies to all aspect of operations. For example, ang firm meron lang silang isiset na specific amount of quantity, or meron silang isiset na sales volume for the month or for the year, and meron silang isiset na quality ng mga inventory na gagawin nila. So those are what we call standards. The second element is the performance evaluation, which compares the performance of the operation in question against the standards, and the difference will be called the variance. So for example, sa inventory, may tinatawag tayong price variance, which I think familiar naman na tayo dito since na-encounter na natin siya sa cost accounting and strategic cost management. So ang price variance, ito yung difference between the expected price and the actual price paid. So if mas mataas ang actual price sa standard price, magkakaroon tayo ng unfavorable variance. Pero pag mas mataas naman ang standard price kaysa sa actual price, we will then have a favorable variance. So finally, the last element is taking corrective action. So after may evaluate yung performance ng operations, the manager now takes action to remedy any out of control condition. So this table here is just the summary and classification of decision types by decision characteristics na na-discuss na natin kanina. So after management function, level, and decision type, another factor that will influence management reporting system is the problem structure. So the structure of the problem reflects and affects how well decision makers understand the problem. So the structure of the problem has three basic elements, which are the data, procedures, and objectives. So when we say data, these are the values used to represent factors that are relevant to the problem. So dapat yung mga data na ginagamit natin sa pagsosolve ng problem, connected siya sa problem na sinusolve natin. So hindi yung halimbawa ang problem natin is all about production. Hindi naman pwede yung data natin is all about marketing statistics. So hindi masosolve yung problem with the wrong data. Second is the procedure. These are the process or the sequence of steps that are to be made in order for us to solve the problem. And lastly, we have the objectives, which are the results results or the goals that decision maker desires to attain by solving the problem. So when all of those elements are present and known with certainty, we can say na yung problem is a structured one. So one example of a structured problem is a payroll calculation. Bakit? Bakit ba siya naging structured problem? So una, tignan if yung data is certain and is relevant para ma-solve or ma-compute yung payroll ng mga employees. Here we can identify the needed data for the calculation of payroll with certainty, such as yung hours worked, hourly rate, kasi meron naman tayong time in and time out, and centralized and computerized naman mostly yung mga data na ginagamit natin sa payroll calculation. Next, we can also certainly make the procedure, and there is already an existing formula in order for us to solve or compute payroll of the employees. So ito yung gross pay is equals to hours worked multiplied by pay rate. And lastly, we can certainly identify the objective of payroll, which is to discharge the firm's financial obligation to its employees. So that is one of the example of a structured problem kasi present and certainly identified yung three basic elements. Now, if any of the three elements are not known with certainty, halimbawa we cannot get the needed relevant data or nasira yung machine sa production, sa operation, and walang manual na mapapalit sa machine na yun para ma-solve agad-agad yung problem. The problem is unstructured. So basta if meron tayong hindi alam sa anuman sa mga three basic elements and there is no precise solution techniques, it will result to an unstructured problem. Looking at the illustration, usually structured problem arise in the operations. Halimbawa yung payroll nagkamali ng computation. Meron agad na process o kaya may nasirang machine sa operation para maayos may process agad. So structured problem, nag-aaray siya mostly sa operations. While partially structured problem typically arise in the operations management and tactical management. And yung unstructured problem, nag-aaray sa strategic management. So, kung mapapansin natin, the higher the level of management, mas nagiging unstructured yung problem. So bakit ba ganon? Bakit habang tumataas yung level ng management, mas nagiging unstructured yung problem? Kasi nga yung mga problems na na-encounter ng mga top level managers or yung mga problem na nasa strategic planning decisions ay need ng more analysis. Halimbawa, nagkaroon ng financial problem. Di ba hindi naman yung immediately masasolve na isang manual lang or computation? Hindi katulad nung structured problem na pag na-miscalculate yung payroll, for example, pwede nating i-recalculate agad-agad. So yun yung dahilan kung bakit habang tumataas yung level of management, mas nagiging unstructured yung problem. So there is an effect of the problem structure in creating the management reporting system. Kasi dapat, we could be able to have already an answer from the management reporting system, lalo na sa structured problems.
Hi, my name is Johanna May Pertes, and in this part of the video, we're going to tackle about the different types of management reports. But first, let's define what this report means. So, a report is a formal vehicle that conveys information to managers. It simply implies as a written message presented on sheets of paper. So, ito yung usual na ginagawa na natin. Now that we defined the term report, what is a management report? It is a formal document that communicates business results, issues, and risks that may be in the form of paper document or a digital image displayed on a computer terminal. This is to seek at informing managers on the different aspects of the business and to help them make better informed decisions. With management report kasi, it helps the management to measure any strategic metrics which may help the company in enhancing their performance and solve some issues. So again, a management report is a formal document na ginagamit para magkaroon ng better informed decisions na pwedeng makatulong sa isang organization or business. Let's take note also na ang report can express information in either verbal, numeric, or graphic form, or any combination.
So what are report objectives sa isang management report? This was already discussed in Chapter 1, but let's recall again. Report must lead the users to an action, and for it to be useful, there should be an information content, meaning the report shall consist information that will be able to help the company. So there are two general reporting objectives. The first one is to reduce the level of uncertainty associated with the problem facing the decision maker. And the second one is to influence the decision maker's behavior in a positive way. Let us also take note that when a report failed to accomplish the mentioned objectives, this will also means that the report lacks information content and does not have any value. Now we go to the two broad classes of a management report. The first one is the program reports and the second one is the ad hoc reports. A program report is a report that provides information to solve problems that users have already anticipated. Pwede nating sabihin na ito yung mga report na meron na silang previous data na pwedeng makatulong sa kanila para mag-come up ng accurate and relevant report. Sa program report, meron tayong two subclasses. The first one is the schedule report. Those are the reports that establish with time frame such as daily, weekly, quarterly, and so on. Yung mga example nito ay daily listing of sales, weekly payroll action report, and annual financial statements. In other words, meron nang nakaschedule na araw when to make such report. So yun yung schedule report. The second subclass of a program report naman is the on-demand report. On-demand report are those reports that are triggered by events and not by the passage of time. Ang example naman nito ay ang accounts receivable manager responding to a customer problem over a telephone. The manager on demand can display the customer's account history on the computer screen. Pwede nating maihalimbawa yung BPO setup, in which kapag merong issue na kailangan agad i-address, persons involved need to come up with a report immediately. Reports are being generated and distributed by real users in real time. And this is what we call the on-demand report. The table shows the different types of report at kung saan sila nabibilang. So, let's mention a few. Mag-mention tayo ng one each example para sa two subclasses ng program report. The first one is the financial budgets. Kaya nasa schedule report yung financial budget kasi hindi tayo makakagawa ng isang financial budget ng isang araw lang without past datas or informations. It will be made over a period of time. And usually, at the end of the month or di kaya naman at the end of the accounting period. For material requirement reports naman, on-demand siya kasi hindi siya gagawa ng report if hindi ka kailanganin. For example, a company who's hosting an event, usually need nila ng mga materials and gumagawa sila ng report based sa kung ano lang yung kakailanganin. Report here is made because it was triggered by an event and not because of the passage of the time. For the next type or class of management report, we have what we call the ad hoc reporting. An ad hoc reporting refers to the reports being made when problems arises require new information over a short notice. In reality, managers cannot always anticipate their information needs. In a day-to-day operation, it is normal to occur some problems that will affect the delivery of information to the management in which relates to the management report. And with that, an organization cannot just stay still and wait until the problem is solved. Managers still have to report even in the midst of short notice, and this is what an ad hoc reporting is. In the increase of computing power, point of transaction scanners, and continuous reductions data storage costs have enabled organizations to gather massive quantities of raw data. This data resource is now being tapped to support ad hoc reporting needs through a concept known as data mining. So what is a data mining? A data mining supports ad hoc reporting. This is the process of selecting, exploring, and modeling large amounts of data to uncover relationships and global patterns that exist in large databases but are hidden among vast number of facts. Generally, there are two approaches in data mining that the managers do employ. These are the verification model, and the second one is the discovery model. Verification model uses a drill down technique to either verify or reject a user's hypothesis, while the discovery model is used to discover previously unknown but important information that is hidden within the data. Well, a central feature of a successful data mining is what we call the data warehouse. This is a relational database management system that has been designed specifically to meet the needs of data mining. This is a central location that contains operational data of current events that are within 24 hours and events that have transpired over many years. Data that are stored inside the warehouse are coded in details and at various degrees of aggregation in order to facilitate identification or recurring patterns and trends. So again, data warehouse is a central feature of successful data mining. This is a relational database management system that has been designed specifically to meet the needs of data mining. For the last part of the management report, we have what we call the report attributes. For report attributes, sinasabi lang dito na kapag present yung 7 attributes na to, effectiveness of your report is also present. So let me read the 7 attributes. First one is relevance. Each element of information in a report must support the manager's decision. Any irrelevancies may be a form of dysfunction by distracting a manager's attention. The second one is the summarization. Report should be summarized according to the level of the manager within the organizational hierarchy. Third is the exception orientation. Must be able to identify what should be reclassified, as for this would be the basis in preparing a new purchase order. Fourth one is the accuracy. Information in reports must be free of material errors. Fifth one is the completeness. Information must be as complete as possible. 6. Timeliness. Timely information that is sufficiently complete and accurate is more valuable than perfect information that comes too late to use. And the last one is the conciseness. Information in the report must be brief but comprehensive. And that's it for the management report.
Good day everyone, I am Jayben Paragsa. The next one is about responsibility accounting. So in responsibility accounting, it implies that every economic event that affects the organization is the responsibility of and can be traced to an individual manager. Ibig sabihin, nadidistribute yung responsibility in each of the department. So, hindi centralized yung decision na gagawin natin. And also, responsibility accounting incorporates the principle of responsibility that area managers are accountable only for items that they control. Rather than top-level management lang yung nagde-decide, they delegated decision-making schemes sa kanilang mga managers so that they could be able to decide doon sa kanilang nasasakupan. So next, as we can see in the table 18, the upward-downward flow of the information. These are the information about significant organizational changes, new objectives, or strategies na communicated downward to keep the workers informed. So normally, the information coming from the top to down, it's either the budgeting information or the philosophy of the organization. So in upward communication, this is the transfer of information from lower level worker to higher level workers. When employees report to a supervisor or team leaders to a department manager, for instance, upward communication is taking place. Progress reports, project proposals, budget projections, complaints and grievances, suggestions for improvements, and timetable issues are among the things that are routinely sent upward. Now, as part of duties and responsibility accounting is setting financial goals, the budget process. So, in the budgeting schemes, it helps management achieve its financial objectives by establishing measurable goals for each organizational segment. So, pag na-delegate na yung responsibility in each of the department, they need to set their own budget which is in line with their organizational budget so that they could be able to achieve that objective. So the budget information flows downward and becomes increasingly detailed as it moves to lower levels of management. Next is the table about top-down flow of budget information. We have 3 levels of management here. So we have production, VP of production, manager of plant 2, and manager production unit 2. So in VP of production, makikita natin yung details ng budget as a whole and we can see the total which is 12.6 million. So pagdating naman sa budgeting na makikita natin sa manager ng plant 2, doon nakikita yung production ng bawat unit. And doon sa production manager ng Unit 2, doon makikita yung specific na budgeting para lamang sa unit na yon, which includes material, labor, and overhead. So, ganoon nagfo-flow yung budget information from top to down. Next, measuring and reporting performance. This information flows upward as responsibility reports to senior levels of management. Yung performance information flows upward as responsibility reports. So, nakikita rin natin sa table 20 na yung budget pababa. Yung main budget, yung master budget natin from the top level management, nagkakaroon ng budget habang bumababa, then yung performance reports natin ay pataas out of dun sa nagawa ng each department.
Hi, I am Kazel Tawataon. I'm going to tackle about Responsibility Center. To achieve accountability, business entities frequently organize their operations into units called responsibility centers. So what is a responsibility center? It is a part of a business where manager is accountable or responsible for specified activity or certain areas. The most common forms of responsibility centers are first, cost centers, profit centers, and investment centers. So firstly, the cost center. Cost center. A cost center is a organizational unit with responsibility for cost management within budgetary limits only. Cost center does not do anything with revenues. Managers are concerned with cost only. Take note, cost only. The best example for this is a manufacturing plant because they are not in charge of revenues. Their goal is to manufacture a good quality product while trying to control those costs so that they can sell it with good profit and low costs. Here you can see a table, a controllable cost report wherein you'll find the materials, direct labor, and overhead arranged accordingly. It presents the budget cost, actual cost, and variant cost in each department that are well arranged and has a total at the bottom so that a manager could easily know if the business incurred less costs. Profit center. Manager has responsibility for both control and revenue generation. So here we are looking at the sales department or maybe even a marketing department. They're looking at sales, seeing how sales can grow, and how they can improve sales. For example, the local manager of a national department store chain may be responsible for decisions about first, which item of merchandise to stock in the store, what prices to charge, the kind of promotional activities for products, the level of advertising, the size of the staff and the hiring of employees. Lastly, building maintenance and limited capital improvements. Obviously, this 6 could change the sales game. So the profit center's performance report is distinct from the cost center's. However, the focus of both reporting should be on items that can be controlled. An illustration for a profit center report is figure 822. The performance of the manager is evaluated only in terms of controllable factors, while the profit center is evaluated in terms of its contribution after non-controllable costs. Lastly, the investment center. The manager of an investment center has the general authority to make decisions that profoundly affect the organization. So managers in investment centers are in charge of cost, profit or revenue, as well as making new investments. So there are 3. They can purchase buildings and expand the business. Assume that a company's investment center is a division with the goal of increasing the return on its investment assets. Cost management, product creation, marketing, distribution, and capital disposition through investments of funds in projects and initiatives that produce a targeted rate of return are among the range of duties of the division manager. The performance report for an investment center is shown in 823, wherein the net income before taxes is presented. So that would be all for responsibility centers. I hope you learned something from the discussion. Again, I am Kazel Tawataw. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My report is all about behavioral considerations. So, behavioral considerations are the factors that would affect the managing reporting system. The first one is goal congruence. MRS and compensation schemes helps to appropriately assign authority and responsibility. It is the scheme wherein the goal of each department should be in line with the overall goal of the management. A carefully structured MRS plays an important role in promoting and preserving goal congruence. However, a badly designed MRS can cause dysfunctional actions that are in opposition to the organization's objective. So, there are 2 pitfalls that causes managers to act dysfunctionally. The first one is information overload, and the second one is inappropriate performance measures. Information overload. So, it occurs when a manager receives more information than he or she can assimilate. So, dapat kasi yung mga binibigay nating information sa manager is yung mga kailangan lang niya para hindi siya nagkakaroon ng mga information na irrelevant sa decision making niya. Minsan kasi disregard ng manager yung mga kailangan niyang impormasyon at tapos nagre-relay siya sa mga information na hindi naman niya kailangan sa decision making niya.
So yun, good afternoon everyone. I am the next reporter, Reynald Animos. So my report is all about inappropriate performance measures. So recall, the one purpose of the report is stimulate behavior consistent with the objectives of the form. When inappropriate measures are used, however, the report can have the opposite effect. Let's see how this can happen using a common performance measure, which is the return on investment. Assume that the corporate management of an organization evaluates division management performance solely on the basis of ROI. Each manager objective is to maximize ROI. Naturally, the organization want this to happen through prudent cost management and increased profit margin. However, when ROI is used as the single criterion for measuring performance, the criterion itself becomes the focus of attention and object of manipulation. So we can illustrate this at the Fifth slide, which is the example of the figure 824 multi-period investment center report. So, as I've said earlier, inappropriate measures will have the opposite effect. It means inappropriate measure will often lead manager to respond to situation incorrectly and continue to reinforce undesirable behavior. For example, when manufacturing goals is to keep absorbing overhead, the result is often bloated inventory and decreased customer service. So measuring and driving toward a singular measure, such as purchase price variance, often leads to high overall costs that are invisible in traditional accounting system. So, getting the lowest possible price is important. But ensuring an uninterrupted supply of needed material to maintain the production schedule and meet customer deadline is more important. Just think about the real cost of material shortages. The best purchase material value is a result of price, quality, and on-time delivery. Keeping an entire organization focused on the right targets and moving in the right direction is no easy task. Of course, what manager thinks that their superiors consider more important through the formal or informal measurement system, it's what's going to get done. That's all. So here is the second line, an example of multi-period investment center report. So in figure 824, notice how actual ROI went up in 2008 and exceeded the budgeted ROI in 2009. On the surface, this looks like favorable performance. However, a closer analysis of the cost and the revenue figure gives a different picture. Actual sales were below budgeted sales for 2009, but the shortfall in revenue was offset by reductions in discretionary of any operating expenditures, employee training, and plant maintenance. The ROI figure is further improved by reducing investment in inventory and plant equipment or fixed asset to lower asset base. So next. So in this example, the manager took action that increased ROI but were dysfunctional to organization. Usually such tactics can succeed in the short run only. As the plant equipment starts to wear out, customer dissatisfaction increases because of stockouts, and employee dissent becomes epidemic. The ROI figure will then begin to reflect the economic reality. By that time, however, the manager have been promoted based on the perception of good performance, and his or her successor will inherit the problems left behind. So the use of any single criterion performance measure can impose personal goals on managers that conflict with organizational goals and result in dysfunctional behavior. So considering the following example. So the number one is the use of price variance to evaluate a purchasing agent can affect the quality of the item purchased. Number two, the use of quotas such as units produced to evaluate a supervisor can affect quality control, material usage efficiency, labor relation, and plant maintenance. So last is the number three is the use of profit measures such as ROI, net income, and contribution margin can affect plant investment, employee training, inventory reserve levels, customer satisfaction, and labor relation. So, the performance measure is important to our business. So, performance measure should consider a relevant aspect of a manager responsibility. In addition to measures of general performance such as ROI, management should measure trends in key variables such as sales, cost of goods sold, operating expense, and asset levels. Non-financial measures such as product leadership, personal development, employees' attitudes, and public responsibility may also be relevant in assessing management performance. So that's all my report. Thank you.